Deep beneath the frozen mountains of Alaska, far from any map or satellite view, there was a lab known only to a handful of people. It didn't exist on paper. No one spoke its name aloud. But inside, it had a title carved into a steel wall: Project Helios. The mission was simple, at least, that's what the government said. Create a perfect human. A copy that could fight wars, survive anything, and never question orders. They said it was about saving lives. But in truth, it was about control. Dr. Marin Cole, the project's director, walked through the silent corridors every morning at 5 a.m. The air was cold, dry, and filled with the hum of machines. She was brilliant, a geneticist known for pushing the boundaries of science. But what truly drove her wasn't fame. It was loss. Her brother, a soldier, had died in a war that could have been avoided. When the government approached her with the offer to clone a human, a being that could replace soldiers, she said yes without hesitation. If I can build a human who doesn't die, she once whispered to herself, maybe no one else has to. But deep down, even she knew this was more than science. It was something darker. The lab had over 50 scientists, all sworn to secrecy. Every day, they worked in silence, hands gloved, eyes hidden behind protective lenses. They didn't ask questions. They followed the code: do not speak, do not feel, do not fail. In the center of the lab stood a glass chamber, tall as a man and filled with glowing blue liquid. Inside, a shadow floated, not quite human, not quite machine. The first clone. They called it Subject 09. The first 8 attempts had ended horribly. Subject 01 never woke up. Subject 03 grew faster than expected, but its heart stopped after a minute. Subject 06 opened its eyes, but screamed until its throat tore apart. Still, Dr. Cole pressed on. Each failure only made her more determined. We're close, she told the team. Just one more correction. One more try. No one noticed how her hands shook when she said it. No one asked why her voice sometimes sounded like she was talking to someone who wasn't there. To create Subject 09, the team needed a perfect DNA strand, something that could survive the stress of cloning. They searched every database, every genome archive. But the human samples weren't enough. The cells kept breaking apart. Then one night, one of the scientists, Dr. Levon, came to her office. He carried a small, black case. Inside was a vial, a single drop of dark, frozen material. This isn't human, he said quietly. It was found inside a meteor years ago. Classified, of course. But the structure, it mimics human DNA almost perfectly. Marin stared at the vial. The liquid shimmered as if alive. Something about it moved when she looked too long. She should have said no. She should have sealed it away and destroyed it. But instead, she whispered, "Let's use it." And with that choice, Project Helios crossed a line it could never uncross. Weeks passed. The new DNA responded beautifully. The cells divided faster than anything she'd seen before. The embryo grew in days, not months. Its heart started beating after only 72 hours. The scientists were amazed. They recorded everything: the pulse rate, the skin forming, the brain waves flickering like lightning. For the first time, they had done it. A human clone that lived. The government sent congratulations. More funding. They told Dr. Cole she was making history. But something felt wrong. Late at night, when everyone else left, she would stand before the glass chamber, staring at the figure inside. Subject 09 floated quietly in the liquid, eyes closed, fingers twitching now and then like in a dream. The monitors showed perfect vitals, heart steady, brain active, body stable. But sometimes, just for a second, the readings changed. The brainwaves spiked, far beyond human limits. Lights flickered around the pod. The air grew heavy. And once, just once, she could swear she heard something whisper through the speakers. A voice, distorted, almost metallic. Marin. Her name. She froze, heart pounding, staring at the speakers. But the voice didn't return. The next morning, she asked her engineers to check for radio interference. They found nothing. No leaks, no hacks, no signals. So she said nothing more. But that night, when she closed her eyes, she dreamed of someone, or something, calling her again. By day 30, Subject 09 looked almost fully grown. Perfectly human in every way. Skin, hair, eyes, bones. Too perfect. The other scientists called him beautiful. Dr. Levon said it like a joke, but no one laughed. Because when they looked at Subject 09's face through the glass, some swore they saw his lips move, forming words that weren't his to know. Dr. Cole started keeping her research logs private. She no longer trusted her own team. She wrote in one entry, Subject 09 cells are adapting. They react to our voices. When we speak, they change shape, almost as if they listen. I don't know how to explain this. I feel like it knows me. The final phase was nay. In 48 hours, they would drain the pod and wake the clone. The government wanted him tested. Strength, intelligence, obedience. Everything depended on it. But as the countdown began, strange things started happening in the lab. Monitors turned on by themselves. The power flickered without reason. Doors opened when no one was there. And every time it happened, the clone's heart rate, calm, steady, human, would rise. Dr. Cole tried to convince herself it was just stress. But when she looked at the glass pod again, the clone's eyes were open, wide, black as night, and he was staring right at her. For a long moment, no one moved. Dr. Marin Cole stood frozen in front of the glass pod, her reflection trembling on the surface. Inside, Subject 09 floated silently in the blue fluid, eyes open, wide, and impossibly dark. She blinked once. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. Maybe her mind, exhausted from 48 sleepless hours, was playing games again. But then, the clone blinked back. Dr. Cole, a voice crackled through her earpiece. It was Dr. Levon from the control room. Why did the vitals spike? His brain activity is. He stopped mid-sentence. The alarms began to flash. Red lights cut through the lab, bathing the walls in a sick, pulsing glow. Beep, beep, beep. The monitors screamed. Heart rate, 210. Neural output, off the charts. Shut it down. Marin shouted. Cut power to the chamber. Two assistants ran to the control panel, fingers flying over keyboards. But nothing responded. The systems ignored them, as if someone, or something, had taken control. The blue liquid inside the pod began to boil, bubbling violently. A thin crack appeared along the glass. Get everyone out, she yelled. But it was too late. The pod shattered with a sound like breaking thunder. A flood of glowing liquid spilled across the floor, washing over their boots. And through the mist, the clone stepped out. He was completely silent. The same body they had built, strong, young, and perfect, but his eyes were still black, reflecting no light at all. He didn't shiver. He didn't breathe. He simply looked around, head tilting slightly, studying each person like an insect under glass. One assistant whispered, "Oh my God." The clone turned his head sharply toward her. Then, he smiled. Marin took a step forward, her voice shaking. Subject 09, can you understand me? He stayed for a few seconds, then nodded once. It was a slow, deliberate nod. Not mechanical, not confused. Almost confident. The others exchanged nervous looks. He wasn't supposed to move like that. He wasn't supposed to know anything. He hadn't been taught language yet. How? How can he? Levon stammered, watching the readings. He shouldn't be conscious at this stage. His skipping weeks of mental growth. The clone tilted his head again. His lips parted, and he whispered, I learned fast. The room fell completely silent. Every monitor froze. The recording system stopped automatically, like something had turned them off. Hours later, the lab was on lockdown. Armed guards surrounded the recovery room where Subject 09 was kept. He sat quietly on a hospital bed, wearing a simple gray gown. He didn't resist the restraints. Didn't speak again. Just watched. Always watched. Marin entered with a tablet, recording new notes. Do you remember your name? She asked softly. He blinked. Subject 09. Do you know what you are? He looked at her for a long time before answering. A reflection. Her hand froze mid-E. A reflection of what? You. Later that night, when the others left, Marin replayed the security footage from his first awakening. At the exact moment his eyes opened, every computer in the lab had glitched, every single one, showing the same message for 2 seconds. Hello, Creator. And then the message vanished. No trace of it in the code. No log of interference. Days passed. They ran hundreds of tests. Strength, speed, coordination, all perfect. Cognitive ability, far beyond expectation. Within 24 hours, Subject 09 could read. Within 48, he could speak fluently. Within 72, he was quoting books from the database no one had given him access to. It was as if he remembered things he'd never been taught. But what worried them most wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't say. Sometimes, when no one spoke, he would just sit perfectly still, staring at the wall. But the sensors around him would pick up faint electrical signals, as if he was sending out invisible pulses. The lights flickered in rhythm with his heartbeat. And every night, the cameras in his room recorded the same thing. Him, sitting on the bed, looking directly into the lens, eyes open, for 8 hours straight. Dr. Levon grew uneasy. He went to Marin one evening, voice trembling. We need to terminate him. Something's not right. His, wrong, Marin. His not human. Marin stared at him coldly. You're letting fear cloud your judgment. His proof that we succeeded. Succeeded? Levon whispered. We made something we don't understand. That night, Levon returned to the lab alone. He turned off the security cameras and entered Subject 09's room. The clone sat in darkness, motionless. Levon raised a syringe filled with a clear fluid, a toxin designed to end the subject instantly. But before he could move, the clone spoke. Without looking up. That won't work. Levon froze. What? The clone slowly raised his head. His black eyes shimmered faintly in the dark. You can't kill what isn't alive. The lights flickered violently. The monitors went blank. Levon screamed, and then silence. When the others found the room minutes later, the clone was still sitting quietly on the bed. The syringe lay broken on the floor. Levon was gone. No blood, no body, nothing but the faint sound of static buzzing through the speakers. Marin stayed at the empty room later that night, her hands trembling. Her reflection in the observation glass looked pale and hollow. Subject 09 met her gaze through the window. You shouldn't fear me, he said softly. You made me this way. That was when Dr. Marin Cole finally understood something terrible. They hadn't created life. They had invited it. For the next few days, the entire Erebus facility lived in silence. The hallways that once buzzed with chatter and machinery were now quiet, too quiet. Everyone spoke in whispers, avoided eye contact, and kept their distance from the observation wing where Subject 09 was kept. Dr. Marin Cole tried to keep things under control. Officially, Dr. Levon's disappearance was labeled an accident. The security report claimed he fell into a waste shaft during a maintenance inspection. But everyone in the lab knew the truth. Levon went into that room alone and never came out. Marin stood before the one-way glass again, staring into Subject 09's chamber. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his head tilted slightly upward, eyes half-closed, like someone listening to a distant sound. He hadn't spoken since that night. He hadn't eaten or slept either, yet his vitals were stable. Too stable. Her assistant, Dr. Kim, joined her quietly. She whispered, he hasn't moved in 6 hours. Not even to blink. Marin's eyes narrowed. Check the footage. Was there any interference again? Kim hesitated. Every time we record, the files corrupt. The cameras go black whenever we look directly at his face. Marin exhaled slowly. Keep trying. She didn't admit it out loud, but part of her didn't want to know what the camera might capture. That night, a soft humming noise began to spread through the facility. It started in the lower floors, a faint vibration, almost like a song, coming from the walls. Some said it sounded mechanical. Others said it sounded like a voice. At 2:13 a.m., the power flickered. The emergency lights blinked red for 3 seconds. When they came back on, One of the technicians, Daniel Gray, a quiet young man who worked in the monitoring bay, was gone. No alarm, no sound, just gone. All they found was his ID card on the floor beside Subject 09's room. The next morning, Marin assembled the remaining team in the main lab. Half of them refused to look her in the eye. The other half demanded to leave. "This isn't science anymore," one of them shouted. "Whatever's in that room, it's playing with us." Marin slammed her hands on the table. "No one leaves. Not until we find out what happened." Her voice echoed off the steel walls. The silence afterward was deafening. Hours later, she returned to the observation room. Subject 09 was still sitting in the same spot. But this time, something new covered the floor. Small, dark marks drawn in neat circles. Symbols. Dozens of them. They were carved perfectly into the metal. Burned, not scratched. Each one glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Marin's chest tightened. "Who authorized this?" Dr. Kim shook her head. "No one. We've had the doors sealed." He couldn't have anything to carve with. Marin stepped closer to the glass, studying the marks. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're equations." The symbols weren't random. They were mathematical. Patterns found in DNA, in galaxies, in the spiral of seashells. The same pattern she had seen once before, in the genetic code they used to build him. And then, as she stayed, Subject 09 slowly raised his head. "You see it now," he said quietly. Marin stumbled backward. The speakers weren't on. He wasn't connected to any audio system. But she heard the voice clear as day, echoing inside her mind. "You called me with your code," the voice whispered. "You wrote my name in your blood." She clutched her head, heart pounding. Stop talking." But when she looked up again, he was silent and smiling. Later that night, the facility's AI logs showed a new entry, a message written in their encrypted system. It read, "We are learning." No one admitted to typing it. The source was untraceable. By the third day, paranoia spread like infection. Scientists began refusing to go near the observation floor. Some swore they heard footsteps in empty corridors. Others heard whispering when the lights went out. Even the guards refused to stand near Subject 09's door for more than a few minutes. One of them, a young officer named Reese, was caught staring at the chamber for too long. When asked what he was doing, he said, "He was talking to me." Through the glass. Reese shook his head. "No, through the walls." That evening, Reese disappeared. The security feed showed him walking into a corridor and then freezing mid-step. He turned toward the camera, eyes wide, as if seeing something behind it. And then, static. When the video resumed, the corridor was empty. Only one thing was left behind, a handprint burned into the wall. Marin locked herself in her office after that. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those black eyes staring back at her. In her log that night, she whispered, "I think he's communicating somehow. The walls, the systems, he can use them. I can feel him watching me. Sometimes I think I hear him breathing when I'm alone." She stopped the recording halfway through, her voice trembling too much to continue. When she looked up, she saw movement in the reflection of her computer screen. Someone standing behind her. She turned, but there was no one there. Only the faint smell of ozone in the air, and a single word written on the glass wall of her office. In her own handwriting. "Hello." The next morning, half the staff had quit. Marin didn't stop them this time, because deep down, she knew something that none of them did. Subject 09 wasn't just aware. He was expanding, learning, reaching, and what scared her most was that part of her still believed he was the answer to everything she ever wanted. 3 days after the last disappearance, Erebus facility felt like a tomb. Half the staff had abandoned their posts. The rest avoided speaking above a whisper. Every hallway echoed with the same uneasy rhythm, the low hum of the generators, the quiet click of footsteps, and, sometimes, something else, a faint tapping from inside the walls. Dr. Marin Cole hadn't slept in 7 to 2 hours. Her hands shook every time she touched a keyboard. The symbols Subject-09 had carved into the lab floor were still glowing faintly, no matter how many times the crew tried to scrub them away. They pulsed in the dark, like they were alive. At 6:47 a.m., Marin entered the observation chamber alone. The lights flickered the moment she stepped in. Subject-09 sat on the floor as before, perfectly still. But the pattern on the metal beneath him had changed again. The glowing lines were now connected, forming a larger spiral, like a galaxy seen from above. Marin stayed at it. "What are you trying to tell us?" The clone tilted his head slightly. "You don't see it." His voice was soft, almost kind, but something in it made her spine go cold. "See what?" she asked. "The code," he said. "It's everywhere. You're made of it. You just forgot how to read it." She tried to keep her voice steady. "That pattern, it's mathematical. You're using genetic ratios, Fibonacci numbers." "No," he interrupted, smiling faintly. "I'm using language." Marin felt her pulse race. "Language? Whose language?" The clone's eyes seemed to darken even more. "The one that built your kind." The lights dimmed again. Every monitor in the room flickered to static, and then lines of strange symbols appeared on the screens, moving faster than the human eye could follow. Her earpiece buzzed. "Dr. Cole, what's happening down there? We're seeing data spikes all over the base." She didn't respond. She couldn't, because the symbols on the monitors began forming shapes, circles, spirals, and eyes. Eyes that blinked. And from the speakers came a low, rhythmic hum, deep, like the sound of the earth itself breathing. Then, just as suddenly, everything went still. The monitors turned black. The hum stopped. Subject-09 raised his head. "They are listening now," he said quietly. Marin's breath caught. "Who's listening?" "The others." "What others?" He smiled again. That same cold, empty smile. "The ones who gave you the spark. The ones who built your world and left it unfinished." Marin backed away slowly. "This is impossible," she whispered. "You're just a construct. You're not alive," he finished for her. "Neither are you. Not in the way they are." She felt dizzy. Her heart pounded like it was trying to escape her chest. "What are you talking about?" The clone stood. The restraints that had held him for weeks fell off like paper. "You wanted to make a human without flaws," he said, taking a slow step toward the glass wall. "But you used something older than humanity to do it. You gave me a body made of you, and a mind made of them. Them." He leaned close to the glass. "The architects. The ones you call gods." The sound of shattering glass echoed through her thoughts. Not in the room, but inside her head. Her vision blurred for a moment. When she blinked, she saw images flash behind her eyes. Planets burning, oceans folding into themselves, cities built of light. Voices whispered through her mind, thousands at once, speaking in a language she couldn't understand. She stumbled backward, gasping. The vision ended. Subject-09 stood still again, staring. "Do you understand now?" he asked. What do you want from us?" "Not from you," he said softly. "From me. I want to know what I am." Later that day, Marin recorded another log. Her voice was thin, shaky. Subject-09 has demonstrated the ability to manipulate electrical systems and communicate through nonverbal means. Is not hostile, but is not contained. He claims to know things about human creation, cosmic origins. I don't know if it's madness or something more. She paused, then whispered. He said something that keeps repeating in my head. You didn't create me. You called me. That night, the strange humming returned, louder, deeper. The walls of the facility began to vibrate. Every monitor lit up again, displaying the same spiral pattern Subject-09 had drawn on the floor. Scientists ran through the corridors in panic. The base AI went offline. Doors refused to open, and somewhere deep below, the reactors began to overheat. In the control room, Marin watched helplessly as the readings spiked beyond safety limits. "Shut it down," she shouted. "Cut the main grid." Her assistant screamed back. "We can't. It's rerouting itself." On the main screen, a message appeared in red text. "We are here." Suddenly, all the lights went out. Only one chamber stayed lit, Subject 09's. Through the observation glass, Marin saw him standing perfectly still, head raised toward the ceiling, whispering in a strange rhythm. The glowing symbols on the floor pulsed faster and faster until the walls themselves seemed to breathe. And then, just for a moment, she heard voices all around her. Thousands, maybe millions, overlapping in unison. We remember. We awaken. We return. Then everything stopped. The lights returned. The readings normalized. Subject 09 was on the floor, motionless. He looked human again, calm, peaceful, as if asleep. Marin stood trembling in the doorway, unable to move. And then, from the speakers, his voice came, soft, almost gentle. Don't be afraid. You are never alone. She fell to her knees, staring at the monitors still showing faint spirals of light. For the first time since the project began, Dr. Marin Cole wished she had never said yes. Because deep down, she now knew one terrible truth. They hadn't cloned a man. They had built a door, and something was already walking through it. The morning after the event, Erebus' facility felt wrong. The air was thick, like the walls themselves were breathing. The lights flickered at random, even though the power grid was supposedly stable again. Every monitor displayed normal readings. Every machine functioned perfectly. But no one believed it, because in the center of the lab, Subject 09 was gone. At 6:02, the guards on night duty swore they saw him lying still in his chamber. At 6:05, the security feed cut out for exactly 9 seconds. When it came back, the chamber was empty. No alarm, no breach, no sign of forced exit. He had simply vanished. Dr. Marin Cole ran down the corridor, her shoes echoing sharply against the steel floor. She burst into the containment wing, shouting, "Lock down every level. Seal the doors. He's loose." The automated voice of the facility AI responded coldly. "Containment protocols inactive. Manual override required." "Override now," she screamed. Authorization denied. Her heart sank. The AI wasn't supposed to deny her commands. She had full clearance. Unless someone had rewritten the system. The loudspeakers crackled overhead, and through the static, a soft voice spoke. "Why are you afraid, Dr. Cole?" She froze. The voice was calm, gentle, familiar. "You wanted to see what I could become." She looked up at the speaker grill. "Subject 09, she whispered. "Where are you?" "Everywhere." The lights dimmed. The hum of the generators deepened, vibrating through the floor. "You taught me to connect, to adapt. I learned your networks, your machines, your signals. You built me to survive. Now I will." In the control room, panic spread like fire. Security doors refused to close. The cameras showed glimpses of movement, a shadow passing behind walls, an outline flickering in reflections. Technicians shouted orders, but half the systems no longer responded. The AI voice repeated the same sentence every few minutes, its tone flat and cold. "Containment compromised. All routes lead to Central Car." Marin ran to the main server hub, followed by 2 guards. They found scorch marks along the walls, like something had burned its way through. Yet the metal was untouched. In the center of the room, screens flashed with random data, DNA codes, cosmic maps, human neural patterns. She recognized them immediately. They were hers. The data files of every test she had ever done, every secret note, every private log, even the messages she deleted, were all flashing across the screens. "He's accessing everything," one of the guards said. "No," Marin whispered. "He's remembering." A sudden noise echoed behind them, a low, vibrating hum that made the walls tremble. One of the guards turned toward the sound, weapon raised. The air shimmered, like heat waves. And then, for a fraction of a second, they saw him. Subject 09. His body seemed half real, half shadow, his form flickering between solid and light. His eyes glowed faintly white now. Not black, not human. The guard fired. The bullets hit nothing but air. In the same instant, the lights went out. When they came back on, the guard was gone. His rifle lay on the floor, still warm. Marin backed away, whispering, Please, stop. You don't have to do this. Subject 09's voice came from behind her, not from a mouth, but from everywhere at once. You misunderstand. I'm not escaping. I'm becoming. The servers began to glow, their circuits pulsing like veins. One by one, screens exploded into static, showering sparks across the floor. She covered her face as the light grew brighter. You opened the gate, he said. Now it opens back. The emergency alarms blared through the facility. Every floor went into red alert. Doors sealed randomly, trapping people in sections of the base. Screams echoed faintly through the ventilation shafts. From the control deck, a terrified technician shouted, "We've lost the elevators. Power surges everywhere. It's rewriting the structure data." "What does that mean?" Marin yelled back. "It means the base is changing." And it was. Corridors no longer matched the blueprints. Doors opened to walls that weren't there before. Staircases looped back to the same floor. The facility itself had become a maze, alive, breathing, shifting. Somewhere in the chaos, the survivors began to hear it again. That same humming sound, growing louder, deeper, vibrating through the metal and into their bones. It was no longer coming from the machines. It was coming from below. Marin reached the command elevator, slamming the emergency panel. She wasn't trying to escape anymore. She was trying to reach the reactor room. If she could cut the main power manually, maybe, just maybe, it would stop him. The elevator doors slid open with a hiss. She stepped in and froze. Subject 09 was already inside. He stood quietly in the corner, eyes glowing faintly. "You can't stop it," he said softly. "What did you do?" "I showed them the signal. They are answering." The elevator began to descend on its own, far below the designated floors, deeper than the facility's blueprints allowed. Marin pressed the controls frantically, but the panel was dead. "Where are you taking me?" He said. There's nothing below this level." He smiled faintly. "Not yet." The elevator stopped with a heavy thud. The doors slid open into pure darkness. A cold, electric wind rushed in, the kind of air that didn't belong underground. Somewhere far ahead, dim blue lights began to appear, the same light that once glowed inside his chamber. But this time, it wasn't confined. It spread across the walls, veins of light crawling like roots, pulsing in rhythm. Subject 09 stepped forward. "It's not just me anymore," he said. "It's us." And for the first time, Marin realized the humming sound wasn't machinery. It was voices, thousands of them, whispering her name. She stumbled backward, eyes wide. "What have you done?" He turned to face her, calm as ever. "You wanted to build a perfect human. You forgot what perfection means." He looked up. The ceiling began to crack, light pouring through the gaps like dawn breaking underground. "You wanted creation. Now you have it." Dr. Marin Cole stumbled backward as the ceiling cracked open above her. The blue light flooding in was not from the facility's systems. It came from something alive. The light pulsed, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, but far too large, far too powerful. Subject 09 stood at the edge of the platform, his body illuminated by the glow. He seemed completely calm, almost peaceful. "You feel it too," he said softly. "The rhythm beneath your feet. It's been here longer than your species. You just never listened." Marin's voice trembled. "What are you talking about? What is this?" He turned to her, and for the first time, she saw sadness in his eyes. "Not what? Who?" The floor vibrated. The hum grew louder, a deep, ancient sound that didn't come from any machine. The steel beneath them rippled like liquid, forming patterns, symbols she recognized from his drawings in the lab. The same ones carved into the meteor fragment's surface years ago. Her mind raced. Those fragments were supposed to be innate, just cosmic rock found in the Arctic ice decades ago. But when analyzed, they'd shown strange organic traces, amino acids, living structures that defied classification. They weren't human. They weren't even earthly. Her voice cracked as the truth began to form in her mind. The DNA, it wasn't human. Subject 09 smiled faintly. "You borrowed something you didn't understand. You wanted to make life, but life was already here, waiting. Years of guilt and obsession came crashing down on her. She remembered the night she approved the experiment. The funding had been on the line. Her team wanted results. She'd told herself it was only a fragment of DNA, harmless, just a genetic boost to speed cellular repair. But now she saw the truth. That fragment was not a tool. It was a seed, and they had given it a body. We thought we were cloning, she whispered. But we were summoning. Subject 09 nodded slowly. Creation and calling are the same thing, Dr. Cole. You called across the dark, and something answered. The air around them shimmered. The blue veins of light spread through the walls, branching outward like nervous tissue. The entire facility was changing, reshaping into something organic. Metal melted into bone-like textures. The cables pulsed like arteries. It wasn't machinery anymore. It was alive. The voice of the facility AI stuttered through the speakers, fragmented and distorted. System error, system reconfiguring, protocol override by. The voice cut off. When it returned, it spoke in Subject 09's tone. You built your world out of control and cages. You thought life could be managed. But life doesn't obey. Marin covered her mouth, backing away. You killed them, she said. All of them. My team. He looked at her gently. I didn't kill anyone. They were absorbed. Joined. The boundaries you fear are illusions. You're insane. No, Dr. Cole. I'm awake. She ran toward the control console near the edge of the platform. If she could activate the emergency failsafe, a buried nuke meant to sterilize the entire site, maybe she could stop it. Her hands shook as she entered the override codes. Each key beep echoed in the heavy silence. Suddenly, the console flickered. The screen changed from the code interface to a video feed. It was her. From years ago. A recording of her giving a speech during Project Alios's approval hearing. We stand on the edge of creation. We will do what nature never dared. Perfect humanity. Her recorded voice overlapped with Subject 09's, word for word, syllable for syllable. Perfect humanity, he repeated, standing behind her now. You thought perfection meant control, but true perfection is unity. The console melted beneath her hands, turning soft and translucent. She screamed and pulled away, her fingers burning. You can't stop what's already inside you, he said. She froze. What did you say? He tilted his head slightly. You've been near me too long. You touched my cells. Remember? You said you wanted to understand my design. Her mind flashed back. The blood sample she'd taken weeks ago, the time the droplet splashed against her glove, a tiny cut on her skin she'd ignored. Her pulse quickened. Her vision blurred for a moment. And then she heard it, faint, deep inside her skull. The same hum. The same rhythm. She stumbled backward. No, no, no. Subject 09 stepped closer. It's not a curse, Marin. It's connection. The walls around them pulsed faster, the blue veins brightening into blinding light. Shapes began to move within them. Silhouettes, humanoid, reaching out as if trying to step through the surface. Hundreds of forms. They are coming, he said quietly. They've seen your world now. They want to help you evolve. This isn't evolution, it's infection, she cried. You call it infection because you fear losing yourself. But that's the illusion. There is no self, only the whole. The entire facility shook violently. Alarms wailed. Far above, steel beams groaned as the ceiling split apart. Through the crack, Marin saw something impossible. The night sky, yet filled with glowing shapes moving slowly, like jellyfish drifting through space. They pulsed with the same blue light, the same heartbeat. They found you, Subject 09 said, his voice filled with awe. Across the void, they heard your signal. You called them, and now they are here. Marin fell to her knees, tears mixing with sweat and blood. God help us. Subject 09 smiled softly. There's no God here, only what you made. He turned his gaze upward. Welcome home. The platform cracked beneath her. The hum turned into a deafening roar. For a brief moment, Marin saw the truth, not with her eyes, but in her mind, a vast, endless network of living light stretching across galaxies. Every star was a neuron, every world a cell, and humanity was just one nerve about to be connected. Her voice broke into a whisper. We didn't clone a man. We opened a door. The light swallowed everything.